And this is a big investment, ensuring that we're putting the reef first, because when you do that, everybody else benefits.
It's billed as the single largest investment the reef has ever seen.
$1 billion over the next 9 years.
More than half of which will go towards improving water quality and land condition, remediating erosion and reducing nutrient and pesticide runoff.
This is not about stop and start, but this is about getting better, investing more, supporting our reef communities.
The other half goes to management, monitoring and conservation of the reef. The funding spans 9 years and depends on the Morrison government being re-elected. But environmental groups say it's missing the point.
Unless we address the climate change threat, throwing money at things like water quality and other threats is like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg.
Over the past 24 years, there have been 5 mass bleaching events, severely affecting 25% of the reefs, and all caused by rising ocean temperatures.
This announcement today is an admission of failure, and it's also a con job. If this government really cared about the reef, they'd care about climate change.
Last year, the United Nations was on the verge of listing the reef as in danger, following recommendations from its scientific advisors, until a last-minute intervention from Environment Minister Susan Lee got them to hold off.
I think it's inevitable that at some point the UNESCO committee will list the Great Barrier Reef in danger, because it's just simply a statement of fact.
With tens of thousands of jobs, billions of dollars in tourism, and the largest coral reef system in the world all at stake, can today's announcement make a difference?
Marine biologist Dr. Dean Miller is the director of Great Barrier Reef Legacy, a not-for-profit working to protect the reef. Dr. Miller, what do you make of today's announcement?
Look, $1 billion is a significant amount of funding to go towards these intervention-style measures, and a lot of very worthwhile projects that have great promise. We'll really look forward to this funding and make good use of it. But we really need to acknowledge that climate change is widely accepted now as the single biggest threat to the Great Barrier Reef. So we need some really solid climate action and policy to be coupled with this funding.
Doc, you're someone that's so passionate about the reef. This is the biggest spend on the reef ever. It is $1 billion over 9 years. I mean, how much of a difference do you think that's going to make, not just to the reef itself, but sort of to the bigger picture as well?
Look, to the bigger picture, absolutely. What this money is really intended to do is build the resilience of the Great Barrier Reef so it can handle and cope with better those stress events. But what we really need to see is, that coupled with, good climate action, because you really can't have one without the other. So I'm speaking from experience. In 2016, we saw a mass coral bleaching event affect the far northern section of the Great Barrier Reef, and that area was considered some of the most pristine coral reef we had. There's very little crown of thorns impact, there's very low population numbers, low farming. It was considered very, very pristine. And when that bleaching impact came along, there was absolutely nowhere where those corals could go. So no matter how good your coral quality is, no matter how many crown of thorn starfish you get rid of, when climate change comes, the corals are severely impacted. And that's what we're dealing with here.
Dean, I know you can't simplify this too much, but I suppose the question is, can you save the reef with just money and repair work, or does it take more than that?
It takes more than that. It's going to take a global effort. I think we're really seeing some of these, we call them global warnings. The melting ice caps, the disappearing kelp forests, the coral reefs around the world bleaching. These are indicators that we're getting to these tipping points. And the more that we ignore them, the more that we make excuses, the worse it's going to be in the future, which is why we're trying to put in these insurance policies like the Living Coral Biobank project. But we really need to acknowledge this and take it head on. And I think that's what all these summits and, targets are all about. It's not just, can we do better? It's no, we have to do better. This is the absolute survival of coral reefs and other really important environments around the world. And if you think that COVID is a social upheaval, imagine if we lose coral reefs. I mean, it's responsible for over a quarter of the ocean's marine life history moments. So a quarter of the marine life relies on coral reefs, and over 1 billion people worldwide every single day rely on coral reefs for their absolute survival, to feed their children, to, their daily subsistence. So if we lose coral reefs, we are going to see a massive social upheaval for our planet.
Dr. Miller, where are you? Did the Channel 10 people tell you to go to the bluest room imaginable?
This is our holding facility for the Living Coral Biobank project. And here right beside me, we have over 80 species of Great Barrier Reef corals that we've collected and put in the biobank project. They're being held in perpetuity for their ultimate conservation, but also to aid in reef restoration and research efforts. So it is now the most diverse living coral biobank on the planet, and we're very, very proud of it.
Dr. Dean Miller, thanks so much for your time.
My absolute pleasure. Have a great night.